Hi there everybody, welcome back to my channel. It's spring, I'm in the mood for some blue and green and happy vibes. Did these gel plate prints about a week or two ago, and I love how dreamy they look. And I'm going to use a lot of these pages, and I like how dreamy and fuzzy and cloudy and how large they are. I'm going to use big portions of them. They're all complementary, and I think they're going to tell a good story. I don't know if I'm going to use black or not underneath with a print. Haven't quite decided yet. It doesn't show through too much. I get a little nervous of black underneath my tissue prints versus over top because it's a little harder to fix if I don't like the results. But that's okay. On this one too, it's got a lot of paint on these tissue papers though, so when I glue them down, there's a lot more opacity than transparency. So we'll see how things go. In the meantime, I'm going to do my typical mark making. Gets me in my zone, gives me something to start with. I doubt if any of this is going to show up at the end, but you know by now, it just gets me into the groove, gets me into the state of mindfulness and play, and I've already at this point forgotten everything that's on my mind. I am just totally in my zone. And that's what my channel is all about. Getting in your zone and doing things for yourself. This is the Stabila Woody. I use it a lot. It's very water soluble, and even though it looks like a light crayon effect there, it really has a lot of pigment in it, and as soon as I activate it with a spray of water, you shall see. So I'm spraying it, and it has immediate results. I love how it spreads. It's quite fun. You can't plan it, it just happens. Not sure yet if I really want a lot of black in my background. I'm more doing this to show you what you can do with it. Look at the effect when you add even more water. I'm putting some weights down just to keep the page flat while it dries because I quite like to capture how it spread. It really thickened, and that water really released more pigment. And it's more black than I want. And that's okay, I can fix it. I wanted to show you what you can do. I'm just sort of transferring some of it like paint. Before it dried, though, I did take a tissue and I dabbed that black area to release some of it. Again, I'm not too sure with those happy prints. Oh, by the way, it's not fixed unless you spray it over with a fixative first. If you don't do that and you add any kind of gloss or matte medium over it or any kind of paint, it will smear and spread. So I do want to spray it with a good fixative and let that dry. Now let's play around with some options. I found some extra little scraps and some black details because I quite like the crispness of these black dots and circles. So who knows, I'll probably end up covering a lot of the black that I just put on the page, but that's my prerogative and that's my whole style. I do layer after layer, and sometimes mistakes are not mistakes. They lead to happy results. So stay with me and watch how it happens. I will put a good portion of this page down, and I will cover probably a lot of that black. Now there is, again, it looks light and dreamy, but there is a lot of white paint and creamy paint on that tissue paper. So when I do glue it down, it's quite opaque in some areas. And what that means is I have to put more matte or gloss medium down as a glue to hold all that down versus my normal tissue prints that are more light and airy and sparse. So I've just got to make sure that I do a lot of matte medium as a glue. I'm rotating it around just to decide how much of that black I want to cover and where I want the colors of this tissue print to sit. Use a clean brush with clean water. This trick is what I do with a lighter tissue print, and it helps release tear away the areas that I want, and it makes it very organic and fuzzy. But in this case, because there's so much more paint on the tissue paper, it tears away a little less desirable. It gives a sharper edge, but it's still not as bad as cutting it with scissors. I do not want straight or very obvious scissor lines. So I'll go with it as it is because that's what I do. Besides, I'm going to do a lot of layers. I've got quite a few sheets of this colorway of tissue prints, so I'm just going to go nuts doing collage and layer after layer. I probably could have used a bigger brush to put this down. Now, notice that it is smearing a little bit. Maybe you can't tell, but it is smearing a bit of that black. So the fixative didn't quite cover all of it. And that's okay. I'm not worried about it at all. This is just an underpainting. In fact, the black is just the mark making. Now I'm just doing layers of collage, and that itself will only be an underpainting until I see where this is going. I don't usually know how the story develops until I've done a lot of layers, and then it starts to talk to me, and it becomes quite obvious what it wants to become. But we're a long way from that. I like that there's a hint of that yellow gold. It's a beautiful chartreuse color of green. Yellow gold, I meant yellow green. It's a beautiful chartreuse color. I love it. It's one of my favorite, and it goes very well with this transparent blue. These were all made with golden high flow acrylics, transparent blue and yellow green, and some white. I will leave all my colors in the notes below. Again, there's quite a bit of opacity here. A lot of times you see me do work where I glue down white tissue prints and then later on I glaze them. I wanted to have fun today showing you that I'm capable of doing colored gel plate tissue prints, and they're a lot of fun. But the difference is they are what they are. So when you put them down, they definitely already tell a color story. And if you don't like that, you have to cover with more layers. Whereas when I do the white tissue prints, I can glaze them as I see fit. So this is a little bit more difficult to make decisions, but that's okay. It's a lot of fun doing collage. If you've watched any of my videos or most of them, you will see that I've not once taught you how to draw and be an artist that way. You do not have to have drawing skills. This is all about creating wonderful abstracts full of color, movement, and energy, and just having fun playing with tissue prints and layers and layers. You'd be surprised what you can come up with. I mentioned in my last video, I highly encourage you to look in the notes, find the links to my Instagram and my website, because then you can see a lot of my artwork that I've done as paintings, and you can see perhaps it'd be interesting for you to look at them and see if you can figure out the techniques I did, because I've taught you everything. So go ahead and look at my sites and have fun trying to figure out what I did. I guarantee you, I've shown you everything that I think I've used. This one's got a lot of white in it. It's quite opaque, and it's a nice top layer. Top layer for this section, but this is still an underpainting. I'm using a paint spreader, which is nice and soft but flat, and it's a good way of spreading the tissue down to get it holding firm onto the paper. I've got in my notes as well the paper I'm using. It's 11 by 15, and it's a cold pressed 140-pound watercolor paper. It does bubble up and warp when you add a lot of water, but it does flatten fairly well. And I like it because it's a fairly nice weight for making cards or small 5 by 7 or 8 by 10 paintings. I ordered it on Amazon. So I'm just putting blocks of the tissue prints down, and we'll see where we go with this. I'm still not sure that I like all that black, especially on the bottom left there. I'm probably going to cover a lot of that, but I'm trying to show you process and how to deal with situations as they arise. And again, this is just paper, so don't be afraid. Go nuts, let loose, have fun, let your soul be free and play, because it's just paper and you can change it anytime. I'm going to cover up some of that black and just reveal the edge of the circle. For now, it might change. So now it's much more subtle. I'm going to treat this as the full 11 by 15 page, and later on, instead of cutting it into 4 like I did in the last 4 of this series, I'm going to probably only choose one area, and which will be about an 8 by 10. And I'm going to, when this is all said and done, I'm going to take a final look at the full sheet, and I'm going to decide, and you can watch with me, I'm going to take that matte frame, I'm going to move it all around, and I'm going to decide which section of this I want. Now, it doesn't mean that I'm going to waste the rest of it. I can always make cards with whatever I don't use. None of it is a mistake, none of it is a waste, and I keep everything. Even if you just make tiny bookmarks, it's good to keep your scraps. I decided I don't want a lot of that's underneath there. I would like to put a big section of this new sheet because, as you can see, it's very complementary. And there's still a hint of that black showing through there, that circle that I patched, and that's okay. The part of the tissue that will go over top of that doesn't have a lot of paint on it, so I believe some of that black will still remain, it will still show up. Again, I should have used a bigger brush. I've sped it up a bit so you don't get bored. And as you can see, all my mark making with the pencil crayons has disappeared, and that's quite all right. So you see there on the right, that tissue right there, it's still revealing some of the black because there wasn't any paint. The paint detail disappeared at that point. I like how these tissue prints did that. It's got a busy marbling effect with the two-tone, and then it kind of disappears like clouds. You can use the paint spreader like this while the matte medium is still wet, and it helps you tear away the excess tissue. I'm not worried about it getting too close to the edge because when it's dry, I can cut all that excess off. Can you see how dramatically this has changed? This is going to change and evolve many times. And that's the fun of this technique. And in learning to be brave and take chances, you get more joy at the end when you see the beautiful results and the stories that want to come out of it. No pain, no gain. So let's play around with a few of these tissue prints with black on it. And I'm not overthinking it. I'm going to place them down. Remember, I've got a big 11 by 15 sheet here, and I'm only going to crop away 8 by 10 inches. So I can have fun with everything I add all over the place, and later on decide which section tells me a story that I want to see. But in the meantime, let's put something down. I'm not going to do a lot of painting today. I'm going to leave it as mostly tissue prints because they're already painted. This is strictly a collage day. The only painting I do is at the end with a little touch-up where I want to enhance a particular story. So I am dispersing this around in a few sections. I usually do it in 3 areas, but again, some of this will get cropped away. And at this point, I have no idea. I like that there's still some white showing up here as well. So I'm going to put a little section here, and notice all 3 sections are different. I'm going to put a little bit here and see how I feel about that. Even though I know I'm going to crop this into 8 by 10 somewhere around this page, I still at this point keep in mind balance and values. I like this print as well. I like that the right side has all the marbly green, and then the rest of it disappears into the clear tissue. But I put that aside, and right now I'm going to deal with this right corner. I'm trying to decide, do I want to keep that? And I decided while it's still wet, I could peel it right back off. There's no point in keeping it on just to cover it up when I know full well I'm going to cover it. These are such pretty colors together. They're very dreamy. Again, there's a lot of paint on the tissue, so I have to put a lot of glue, matte medium down as a glue. And I need to put this tissue down before that matte medium dries. Again, I'm not overthinking. I'm just making very quick, intuitive decisions. I like how there's a little bit of an obvious edge to that green. Now I tore some of that away to reveal that white. But I'm going to put some back. I'm keeping the integrity of that white oval where my finger was, but I've just added a little bit more of the green print to the right of it. I do like to reveal circles whenever they're there. That smeared a little when I went over those dots. So clearly when I did that that print on that wasn't a gel plate print actually. Those black details was just me taking a tissue and getting a Posca pen and making circles and dots. But clearly, even after a month later, it got activated with the matte medium and it smeared it. So that's a little trick about Posca pens. They're not necessarily permanent. I'm going to put a wedge of this opaque blue and white marbly page. And I don't mind if it's smearing the dots as well, which makes it a little smeary and muddy. I like to put this on an angle like that and change the pattern and the shape of that dot area. That's fun. I like that. I like changing things up a bit. Love that. I'm just spraying a little water to wipe off the smearing of the black that got on the brush and therefore onto the baby blue. So I'm trying to dab away gently any of the black that was there. So that's an interesting shape happening there. Not too sure what the story is, but I like what's happening. I'm just making sure I put more matte medium, but being careful not to rub that area. I like all this overlapping. I'm creating depth already. I always loved playing with depth. Now I've got this print. This is another case where I had a clear tissue and I took a green Posca pen and drew a bunch of squares in rows, in columns. Now because there's a lot of blue where that arrow showed, there's a lot of blue in the background. This should show up fairly well, the contrast of the green squares over top of the pale blue background. Now, it might not show up at first because the light shining down on the page kind of distorts the effect. It brightens it up, but it will show up. That's fun. Again, I don't know what section I'm going to crop later, and I don't know if I'll even use that part, but I'm putting it down because I like it for now. See, it does show up, and it picks up the yellow-green that's in the other areas. So now it's dry, and I've cut all the excess tissue off. I like that detail on the top left there. That's interesting. You can't think of painting that. It just happens when you do all these layers of collage. That's the joy of collage. And that's the joy of my abstract style, is I get really interesting results that I would never think of painting. They just show up. So I'm rotating the page around to decide, I'm trying to decide where I want to crop it, what I want to do from here. The best way to do that is to get my mat. It's an 8x10 outer frame, about 5x7 in the middle, and I'm just moving it all around to decide just briefly how I want to crop this, because I am only going to use one cropped area for the finale. That works. That's okay. I like that better, that position. I like how it shows that detail in the top. It's very cloudy and dreamy, but I find that the circles are a bit heavy. But it could work. Maybe it would have worked better if they were white circles. That could work. The left and the right dots balance each other. It's interesting, but I don't know what the story is. It does work. It needs more work as well, but again, at this point, I'm just trying to decide where to crop. Then I will enhance. That works, but it needs a lot of work. It's too flat. This one I quite like because graphically it's interesting. You've got the dots, you've got the columns of squares, you've got a river of blue going through there. It tells a story. This tells the biggest story to me. Even though I don't know what that story is, I can tell it's telling me a story. And what I love when a section tells a story, it's going to be different for every customer or every viewer. I'm still trying to think. I really love settling on sections where it can tell so many different stories for different people. That's a better marketing angle, I suppose. If you want to reach more people and have more people like it, that's a way to think about it. I do like the flow and the movement of that. I'll call it a river for lack of something else. I'm playing around with other scraps to see if it could work. I mean, color-wise that works, but I find it too messy. I don't know what the story is now. I just like that one better, even though it's simpler. Sometimes less is more. Any of these scraps are going to work color-wise because they're all in the same color family, but I'm not too sure yet. Again, that does tell a story, but it's starting to get a little too busy. I like the juxtaposition of busy areas and calm areas and strong features. It works, but that green line there leads up to the dots and it doesn't really go, they don't talk to each other. And then it fights with these columns of squares. So I'm not going to use that one. I almost prefer the flat blue before that was put over top. But that flat blue area still needed something. Then I found this one. Again, that same day that I did those gel prints, I did this page as well. And so definitely color-wise, it works. And I thought, let's get a different shape out and see what happens. I like how fuzzy and dreamy and delicate that shape is. I don't know what it's saying, but it almost looks like a bush or plants growing. I think that could be a winner. So I'm going to isolate some of that. I'm going to try to tear it away and just keep part of it because it looks like it's trying to tell a story. Again, the magic of this is I would never have thought, this piece that I'm pulling away now, I would never have thought to paint that on top of that artwork that I'm working on, the cropped area. It's just there on the tissue and it's waiting for me to use it. Can you see already how that works? It's just like magic. It totally works. Absolutely love it. I love how the blue river swirls around and scoops back and lands where my finger is. I love that it flows and matches that. So I've got the blue in two areas, lighter blue over there. I've got the green there and green here. It's balancing. I like it. I love how delicate and soft and fuzzy. See the difference? And plus that other piece had a dirty, muddy look. I really like that. To me, it's just jumping out as a story. And I hope it's a different story for lots of people. So let's get that glued down before I move it. I want to keep it in place because I don't want to lose the position. I quite often will do that. I'll use the mat over top to decide where to place that. And then when I glue it down, I know it's in the right spot. I don't mind that there's a straight edge on the bottom of that tissue because I know the frame, the mat is going to cover it. So you won't see that straight line. There's a spot right there that got folded over, so I have to delicately pull it back out because it's a nice, soft, fuzzy edge. I didn't want it folded over, so there you go. I'm very happy with this. Who'd have thought? You just have to be bold and take chances. Now, I did notice that area that's circled. It's hard to tell on screen, but it's very bubbled. When it dried, there were a lot of air pockets underneath, and I didn't want to leave it like that because I will sell this, and I want it to be perfect. So I need the tissue paper to be flat and not bubbled out. I'm trying different ways of pulling it back with a fine edge, with a blade, because I'm hoping I can just, again, because that's pulling back, you can see that wouldn't have happened if there was matte medium there. Clearly that was all a pocket of air. And even though it's revealed white paper below, I can go over that again with more collage. So don't worry about it. Looks like I wrecked it, but I didn't. And every time something like that happens to me and I fix it with something new, it seems to be a better solution. So hang in there with me. We'll find a nice area of blue that we can use as a patch. Again, that's not going to tear away very soft and fuzzy. It's going to be a fairly obvious line, but that's okay. Hopefully some of that tissue will dissolve and you won't notice that it was tissue paper at all. Now I want to make sure I don't cover up a lot of those dots because I like how the dots disappear up to the top in a finer line. So I'm just going to play around with this a bit because I need to cover that patch, to cover the paper that got revealed, but I don't want to ruin my dots. And I also don't like that when I tore away, some of the dots turned into, it almost looks like a little line, and I didn't want that. So let's see what we can do. I know this looks finicky, and normally I'm not that picky, but at this point I know what I want, and so I'm going to take the time to do it right. You see those dots there, where right below there? I need to cover that up because I didn't like what happened to them. All of this is worth the effort. Much better. Let's get that glued down. Make sure I've got enough glue this time. Glue, matte medium. So I've got to make sure I cover all the paper that was exposed. So it's a different effect than what was there before, but it is what it is. Again, I don't worry about things that happen. You can always change it. For example, I don't like that black oval anymore right there. It suddenly doesn't make sense with the story that's trying to tell. So let's cover that up. Yeah, I didn't like that. It's always the artist's prerogative to change things as they go. I don't like that little spot right there either. It still looks like a line of 3 dots, which looks like a straight line. So let's cover some of that. Oh, it's always a good idea to keep getting that matte so that you can see if you're on the right track. I think I'm going to take some of that back since it's wet, because those 3 dots are still not covered properly. There we go. That's better. Now it looks like quite a strong line at the top of that blue, but the matte's going to, I've decided I'm going to place that so that it disappears into the underneath the matte. So I won't worry about it right now. Now look at that. The story changes completely if you turn the matte this way, and it would work, but I would take those green boxes and highlight them a little stronger so that they pop forward. But I like this the best. I'm going to go back with my gut feeling. I don't want all those dots on the left. Oh, I just love this. Absolutely love this. It's just a matter of where to place it. Yeah, I think I'm going to let that blue patch disappear under the mat right there. I like that better. I'm going to cut that off. I'm going to overlap it enough so that that gets covered. I know that it's top heavy with the black up top there, and I like to balance it down below. So I've decided already that what I did with my finger there was I was showing you that I'm going to put my little signature down in the bottom right in black, in very small fine liner, and that way it'll bring the eye down. So I've got the blue flowing, I've got the green balanced. What I want to do now, I'm going to find the exact position, and then I'm going to outline the entire outside of the frame, the mat, so that I can cut it away. So I'm just finding exactly where I want it. I don't want those dots on the left. There you go. Now I'm going to just outline the mat, and I'll know where to cut, so that any finessing that I do from here on, I know that it's within the section that I need. So there it is, cut, and it's amazing how it transforms the moment you put the mat there, because before I put the mat down, it still looked like a bit of a hot mess. But as soon as I put the frame on over top, the matte, it becomes the story. So I want the eye to move down to the right with the blue because it's heavy with the blue and the black up there. So I really want to draw the eye down towards the bottom and the right. So I'm going to get my transparent blue. Again, this is golden high flow acrylic. And I'm going to use a very fine brush that's wet so that this, even though it's transparent, because the brush is wet, it'll go down even more transparent. So what I'm doing is drawing the eye down to the right. And what happens is it pushes that blue into the background, and it's going to make these green squares pop forward. And you know, I love playing with depth and layers, so it's definitely going to transform this. I'm going to wipe that away while it's wet. You can see how wet it is. I just want to make sure that I don't cover up the green squares. This is the part of my process that I love the most because I've already figured out what the story is. I don't have to contrive anything. I'm just enhancing. So I'm bringing the eye down and to the right. The blue goes to the back. The green boxes pop forward. And it becomes a much more interesting painting full of depth and layers. And definitely more balanced. Now that I'm working on drawing the eye over to this area where I circled, you can see that it's giving more balance to the painting. I don't want the eye to get stuck on the left and ignore the right. I want the eye to move all around the page. And because it goes on so transparent, I sometimes have to do a few layers. And the other thing I want to play with is where that blue stops and meets the white. I want that to be a real obvious firm edge so that it looks like the white is overlapping and then the green box is overlapping that. Again, it just creates layers and much more depth. I repeat, I would never have thought to do this as a painting if I would have said, oh, I'm just going to paint this and see how it turns out. This just happens. Let's get that matte back over top. Can you see the difference? There's much better balance of values because the blue value on the top left was so strong, I needed to make it stronger on the right. Now this is from Golden High Flow Acrylics. It was the green gold or green yellow, I forget, and I mixed it with fluid white and left it in a tube, and it becomes this beautiful, happy, bright yellow green. And I use it a lot, and so I'm just dipping my fine brush in and enhancing some of that funky detail on the left so that it brings the eye over to the left and balances the green. And because I did that, I want to go over top of this, not all of them, but some of these yellow-green squares and bring them forward. By adding a layer of this, which has got the opaque white in it, it makes this green pop that detail forward. I sped that up a bit, by the way. So again, I'm creating, you can see right there how it makes the green pop forward on top of everything else. This has been so much fun, this one. Well, they're all fun. I enjoy every single one. They're all a different journey, and they're all a journey and playful and fun for my soul. And I hope you get into it because you'll see that it's just a fun habit to get into. Even if you only do 10 minutes a day, it's just really good that you take time out for yourself. So I'm just adding the odd little touch of yellow-green opaque paint there on the left just to make that pop forward. This is just turning out beautifully. The boxes pop forward, the green pops forward, there's balance. Just another little bit. It just needed a little more. I do feel like it's a river and plants and clouds, but you know, I could say that this is an abstract landscape, but you might see something completely different. I don't like anything to be too obvious. I want my viewer to create their own journey when they look at it, use their own imagination. So I like this as it is. I'm very pleased with it. I just need to balance that black. So I'm going to get a fine line pen and do my signature, JM. I'll start off with very delicate and light, and it's not enough weight to bring the eye down, so I'm doing another layer to make it darker. And that was all it needed to bring the eye down there and balance the black. I just am crazy in love with this one. Absolutely. I don't even know if I want to sell this one because I like it so much. I hope you enjoyed it too. And I really hope you try these lessons. Thank you for watching. And I hope you like and subscribe. It helps my channel, but more importantly, if you subscribe, anything new I present comes to your YouTube feed. So have a great day, everybody, and I'll see you next time.